Hi, Akansha. How are you today?
Nice, I'm doing good. Thank you for having me here. Hello, everyone. I'm really grateful to APIsec University for organizing this event and glad to be here with lined up speakers. The topic which I'm going to discuss is absolutely critical to our modern digital operation, that is API security. And we all will agree to this that APIs are the engines that power our business from mobile apps to cloud services, AI integrations or maybe to partner networks as well. However, this very power and ubiquity has inadvertently created a vast, often unseen attack surfaces. So today we are going to move beyond the reactive mindset of patching vulnerabilities and instead explore a strategic framework for building true resilience. I have just 30 minutes, so I'll try my best to explain the API security confident control over our API landscape. We will analyze why exactly, despite knowing the risks, breaches are still happening and how regulations are raising the stacks. Basically, my goal is to transform our understanding from unseen risk to confident control. Before I move forward, I would like to introduce myself just to make you familiar with who I am. My name is Akansha. I am from India and I live in a very beautiful city in Netherlands, that is Amsterdam. I work in ABN AMRO Bank and have almost 10 plus years of experience with security. I did a couple of certifications, and as I also earlier mentioned, that I do write articles specifically for API security over Medium. If you would like to go through with those, please do follow me. And if you want to discuss them further, I'm open for any kind of challenges as well. Moving forward, the innovation paradox. So APIs have been instrument in driving innovation and agility. I think everyone will agree with this. They enable us to connect systems, build new customer experiences, and streamline operations faster than ever before. So, however, this rapid adoption has a significant side effect, as I mentioned, because it brings API sprawls and chaos. We are seeing an explosion of APIs, internal, external, third party, partner facing, and let's not forget shadow and zombie APIs that are unknown or unmanaged by security teams. Not security teams, I would say developers as well. So, this lack of visibility is a critical risk. As you can see on the screen, this chart illustrates API growth has far outpaced our ability to secure them, leading to a stark reality that is API attacks are now the leading vector of data breach. There is no denying with the fact. The root cause, I would say the critical insight here is that attackers are not finding any new thing. They are already existing. So they are not obscure zero-day exploits. They are just leveraging the intended functionality of APIs, what they are supposed to do against us. So look at the Optus, which happened, and it was just a simple broken object level authorization, that is BOLA flow. An API endpoint designed to retrieve some customer details by ID was exposed without checking if the logged in user was really authorized to see that specific customer's data. So the attacker and could simplify, iterate simpler IDs. These are basically the simple attacks also happened in Facebook, in PayPal with just single endpoints. I think you might have you are all following hackers news or some other news. So you might be familiar with all these. So I think for every organizations for leadership, this highlights that the core issue is not a lack of known solutions, but a consistent failure to implement fundamental access controls, business logic validations, maybe input sanitizations. And I think this is very good to know for developers as well, because exactly what OWASP has been warning all of us for like several years. So for specifically for developers, it means we must focus not just on how an API call is written, but on the purpose and the business context behind it. I would say it's very important to understand these OWASP top 10, which reveals the most common vulnerabilities. Highest, I would say, was BOLA. in the past years, excessive data exposure, injection attacks, the entire list is for you, for us, like a security person, and for developers, architects, whosoever is developing anything or integrating or maybe doing whatever with respect to APIs, to put the security measures upfront before they get exploited for these known vulnerabilities. Moving ahead, I would like to really highlight the why. This leads to a critical question: why? If we already know about these existing vulnerabilities and the basic principle to fix them, like we do have OWASP cheat sheet, we have preventive measures, we have several like mitigation measures in place. So what is the challenge? Why do they persist? Like why do they still in the market happening every other day with any of the organization? In my opinion, the reason are often a blend of technical debt, process gaps, and definitely a cultural challenges. From developers' perspective, they are under immense pressure to deliver features quickly, often making security a secondary priority. And the business implication of subtle authorization flaw might not be immediately apparent to the developers. Our complex distributed architectures also make it harder to enforce consistent security. So these are the main reasons why these known vulnerabilities are still happening. On the organizational side, maybe silo teamwork, they work in different groups, inconsistent standards, and lack of robust threat modeling. I think already have a very nice session about threat modeling. So it's like lack of the robust threat modeling means security reviews can be bypassed. So it's a cycle that often starts with the best intentions but get derailed by operational realities. Another reason is definitely a gateway illusion. So, for years, the API gateway has been our primary defense, or we can say our bouncers at the front door. Gateways are excellent. I'm not saying gateways are not beneficial for us. They are excellent at validating credentials, enforcing rate limiting, directing traffic. However, the most dangerous attacks today often bypass these controls entirely. And the question is why? Because attackers are not trying to break through the doors, they are exploiting the intended functionality of the API. So, gateways lack those contexts. They can validate a JSON web tokens, but they can't understand the business logic of that particular API. For example, if I say a multi step purchase process, you like gateways are aware that yes, this has to be done, but is it by the correct users who is legitimate? They check, but are they authorized to do that? So they suffer from payload blindness, like checking the syntax but not the intent. And crucially, they have no visibility into API to API in traffic, the east west communication that was central breaches like Capital One. I would say relying on only on gateways creates a false sense of security. So that is just my opinion. I'm not here to say that you shouldn't onboard gateways or anything, but yeah. Moving ahead, the interconnected attack vector, and everybody in the market is talking about APIs and AIs, but we still say that these are two different aspects. So this layered risk is amplified exponentially with AI. Many, as I mentioned, like many people view AI security as a separate domain or like a separate like point of view they have for AI security. But the reality is that AI systems depends on these APIs. If I take an example of BOLA vulnerability, so it's in a like in BOLA vulnerability, in an internal API, suppose you have internal API which allows an attacker to gain the identity of a trusted user, and then they can execute a highly damaged or damaging prompt injection attack against you, like basically for your AI. Similarly, if your AI consumes a compromised third party API, you could inadvertently poison your AI's training data. So we cannot say that we are securing AI if we don't secure the underlying APIs through which these AIs, these agents are working. So it's very important that we consolidate these two domains and work together for AI security or API security. The four layers and targeted threats. So I try to divide these OWASP top 10 existing one in these top four layers to counter these threats effectively. So if from developers perspective or from security perspective or architects, if we think that we need to really understand them across these different layers of API. So if I say that at the network and service layer, we see attacks like DDoS, server-side request forgery, identity and access layer, BOLA, or many other access or authorization level issues resides. In the data layer, we encounter injection attacks, data exposure, and critically, I think the main one is the business and application layer where attackers abuse the application's core logic. So it's vital to see how these layers interact because a vulnerability in one layer can enable exploitation in another. So if you try to think of these four layers and then map it with the existing OWASP top 10, it would be easier for you to like proactively give measures for these one. All right. So understanding the API security landscape. So I tried to give you an overview of how these attacks happen, how it is related to AI, what are the OWASP top 10 when we are defining from the layer wise. So here, how do we move from this state of sprawl, known vulnerabilities, regulatory pressure to confident control, like how we can secure basically. So we need a structured approach, basically the API security control plane. Think of this not as a like a single tool or like one tool, but as a strategic architectural framework that organizes our defense across the entire API lifecycle, focusing on three critical domains, that is divided as design and development, policy enforcement, runtime, and data protection for sure. So I think these are the top three domains in which if you start working, then you can definitely create a confident control for API security. And it's always said that security is not 100%, but still, if you try to work on these domains, specifically step by step, you will definitely develop a security API security framework from a scratch till production. So let's talk about like very first domain, that is design and development, or I should say shift left imperative. We make a security a non-negotiable part of the development process. So I think threat modeling is a critical for identifying how business logic could be abused. So when you do threat modeling, you definitely look into the components, how communication is happening, what are the like interaction within your application, within your API. So that is very key aspect to develop your API security foundation. So we should enforce secure coding practices and integrate security testing directly into our CI/CD pipelines, even defining granular API specification with security schemas helps enforce security at the design stage. So this will create your basic foundation for the entire life cycle. So if you see this graph shows fixing a security issue early in design or development is exponentially cheaper than fixing it in a production. So being a security person, I can assure you that if you as a developer, if you create this kind of mindset while developing any API or just writing down coding or developing any endpoint, it will really help us and you together. Next domain is policy enforcement, primarily at the API gateway and edge. Here, we implement consistent control. So this includes strong authentication, authorization, leveraging standards like OAuth and JSON Web Tokens for fine-grained access. We should also enforce rate limiting to prevent abuse and crucial input validation using API schemas to detect if there is any kind of malicious payloads. Definitely traffic analytics to provide real-time visibility, like what is happening, how your APIs are behaving. And if you see this chart shows these gateway policies significantly improve our security coverage, like compared to having no gateway controls. So at the starting of this session, I said that gateway illusion, but I would say that these are definitely important, but not everything. So you should have gateway. Still, you need to do threat modeling. You need to have your checks at the design and development phase to have Not 100%, but yeah, to create a security at the like very first stage and then moving ahead. Third domain is runtime and data protection. So even with robust design and edge policies, we really need a dynamic defenses for what might slip through. You still need a runtime and data protection. This is where we focus on continuous monitoring, behavioral analysis. Maybe you can use some kind of AI agents or machine learning to any unusual API activity that static rule might miss. Data loss prevention scans for sensitive data exposure in real time, incident response mechanism, automate our reactions to detect threats, and comprehensive security analytics for logging and monitoring. So, this domain is really critical for catching advanced threats and with the timeline. So, if anything happens in your traffic, you will know at the right time straight away in the I think I have less time to go, so I will try to. Okay. So let's synthesize how these three domains work together. Let's imagine an attack. Our design and development effort, which is our first domain, which you need to develop in your foundation as a foundation of your API security, aim to prevent a majority of the vulnerability if you do correct threat modeling, if you have correct secure coding measures, and if you have like best practices for developers from security point of view. So say 70% would be covered. For the remaining 30%, our policy enforcement at the gateway blocks another significant portion, maybe 25%. Finally, runtime and data protection catches the remaining sophisticated 5% that bypass the earlier layer. So basically, no single control is perfect, but by layering defenses across all three domains, we create a resilient posture that can adapt to evolving threats. So that is very important that you try to create a mindset that it in every stage of your development cycle, you need to have security in place. So the strategic imperative beyond all these technical vulnerabilities and development pressure, we also operate within a framework for external and internal regulations and policies. These are not just compliance burden. Don't think them there to just as a checklist. They are strategic imperatives that directly shape our API security posture. So if I talk about GDPR, DORA, everything, these external and internal mandates define our baseline security requirements, directly informing the controls we must implement. So if you have, like, I'm not sure if you know all these regulations like in depth, but if you go through each one of those, they definitely talk about how to deal with all personally identified information, how you can have sensitive information, how to deal, what are the measures you need to put. So failure to align means not only a security risk but a significant compliance and reputational risk. So they definitely add like a layer on top of the existing frameworks which you have. Moving ahead, key performance indicators to truly achieve confident control, like how you can say that, yes, we are in control. We need to measure everything. We need to measure our progress, like what we are doing, how we are doing. So, meaningful KPIs, these are hypothetical data which on the screen, like 94%, 92%, but just to give you a vision or like visibility, how this can be done. So, like this will translate our efforts into actionable insights and demonstrate your ROI. So in discovery and like security, we track how many shadow APIs we have, bring under management. So you can showcase that these are the outcome of your security postures which you have. For incident response, we focus on reducing our mean time to detect and mean time to fix. Critically, we must also track policy compliance, ensuring our APIs adhere to all these regulations like GDPR, DORA, etc. So, organizations with mature API security program show significant improvement in response time and drastic reduction in successful attacks. So, these are very important if you see in the graph. They really help us to create this kind of in control API security. So, conclusion, I think your action plan for confident control, and to summarize whatever I just said, APIs are the backbone of our digital operation, but the risks are significant and evolving. There is no denying from that. And regulatory compliance adds another critical layer of urgency. So, by adopting the API security control plane, we move from reactive posture to one of proactive resilience, ensuring we meet both our security and compliance obligations. Your path forward is clear. Like it should be very transparent that discover every API, defend with layered control across design, edge, and runtime, put proper measures, and then progress to ensure continuous improvement in compliance. This is how you achieve confident control. This is the last slide. This, I think, it is for you to secure your APIs, protect your future, and really it's a time to act now. Don't just wait for the breach to happen. If you know these are the existing vulnerabilities, you have all the OWASP guidance, just take the control of your API security. So start with API discovery, develop the roadmap, and address firstly OWASP top 10 API risks because they are already there in the market, and empower your developers. I think they are there to develop. They are the heroes of every organizations. So make security a shared responsibility. Invest in right tools, trainings, expertise, and awareness. So that's all from my side. Thank you so much for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
That was amazing. Thank you, Akansha. We have a question here about tools to help developers write secure code.
I think they are helpful if they have better understanding of best practices for coding. So if
Yeah.
you just create some kind of rules at the back end, but we cannot like 100% rely on the existing tools for like secure coding. We still need scanning. That's why we do have a scanning for secure coding practices. We do need scanning still if we are developing code from the tools.
Thank you so much. Have a great
Thank you
evening.
so much. Bye bye.